Military Student Liaison for the 2013-14 school year. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming and waiting while we're waiting for a tripod and all kinds of stuff going on, but we gotta be flexible. So we're good now. So if everyone's got food, we're good. We're doing military social work perspectives from active duty, veteran, and civilian social workers that all work with military and veteran individuals. Pass it on to you guys, do introductions and then start. Okay.
I'm Lisa Hess. I'm a licensed clinical social worker at the Navy Medical Center in San Diego. I'm also prior Navy enlisted, and then I got commissioned with the Air Force 10 years ago. I'm a licensed clinical social worker for the Air Force at March Air Reserve Base. And so I've got 20-something years, and I keep plugging away in the reserves and active duty. But I'm here to talk about any of those things. What's available in the reserves. I can talk to you about working with active duty folks over at Balboa, and then working with deployment. I've been deployed myself. In 2010, I went to Kyrgyzstan, Trans Center Manas. I had to look up that on the map to find out where I was going. And so I was there for 4.5 months, and so I can talk about the deployment process too. So any of those things, please don't hesitate to ask. No dumb questions. Thank you.
My name is Mary. I'm an ensign currently at Naval Medical Center San Diego. Previously, I went through USC as well. I graduated in 2012 and earned a commission to the Navy. Did my second-year internship at Naval Medical Center San Diego and got to stay there. So I've been in a little over about a year and a half now, working at Naval Medical. So I can give you my perspective from an internship side and now an active duty side. I don't have any deployment experience, but working with active duty families and military members and stuff.
My name is Eric Frank. I'm an adjunct here at USC. I have a private practice. I'm also a clinical supervisor at several drug and alcohol programs. I am pure civilian. I've never served. My experience with the military is not only professional, but personal for family, grandfathers, and father. Spent a significant amount of time in active duty reservists, Texas National Guard. So that helps me a lot every day. So I can tell you purely from a civilian point of view what it's like to work with active duty military and their families, because I spend a great deal of my time in my private practice working with families and their children on deployment issues, on those kind of things when mom or dad have to go away, and the implications of that on the families' lives. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chitra. I graduated in 2012 with Mary. I'm a veteran myself, was deployed, also was a military spouse, and now I am a social worker working with homeless veterans. So I can give you a wide variety of perspectives.
Is there any questions? Do you guys?
Go ahead.
From you two, what do we need to know to be competitive for like VA or any kind of placement like that for our second year?
For VA placement? For
VA placements or vet centers or anything like that, or even hospital. I know you're at Balboa now. We were just in a meeting like a couple weeks ago actually.
Balboa is going to be hard because there's not a lot of slots coming up probably. The issues that the Navy's focus right now is on training us that are in the pipeline to become LCSWs. So they're kind of taxed with how many LCSWs they have available to work with interns. I know that a lot of it was probably our interview, having good experience, good interest in doing the work, not because it's a gateway to something, but because it's what you want to do. And I think that the interviews really spoke a lot when we did them with Captain. And so it was a lot of the interview and a lot of being able to do that kind of work and having experience and that interest.
Yeah, I can say from interviewing students, I look for motivation to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And so when we're asking you what you want to do, if you rock solid say, I just want to work with wounded warriors, then we're probably going to go, because the chance of working with wounded warriors right now is slim. That's kind of wrapped up by a different department. But if you're willing to come to the Navy hospital, work in any department, working with any military family, children, the men, the women, if you're open to whatever we can give you in that experience, we'll definitely see that as a positive versus saying we want this area right here. Be open to working in any area.
So I guess sort of piggybacking on that, how much are you, in terms of this entry level kind of placement? How much are you looking for people that have had direct experience with veterans versus people, you know, in terms of civilians versus somebody who actually is a veteran or somebody who is active duty? What are you, you know, what does that look like? What are you looking for?
I think last year we had a couple years ago, we had 7 interns at Balboa, and out of 7, I think only 1 or 2 had any military experience. So it's not mandatory. It's really just what your passion is and what you want to do. And if you come across in that interview process, that's what you really want to do, and you're open to learning, that's what we'll definitely take a look at you, whether you have military experience or not. Sometimes military experience can actually be negative. If you seem like you know everything already because you've been there, it might come across wrong to the interview panel. Sometimes having no military experience could actually be better and being open to learning.
What are some struggles that you guys have had while working with the population?
Transference issues, like that's a big issue for me. Like I found a lot of triggers working, because I work with homeless. So, like one of the biggest things that peed me off is people who fake mental illness to get benefits. That really irritates me. And I was talking with a couple people at a committee meeting or something, and they were like, you know, everybody deals with this when you're dealing with homeless, and they were like, unfortunately, in an effort to help the people who really, really need it, we have to help some of the people that don't really need it. So that's one of the things that I personally struggle with. And another thing I struggle with is my women veterans with their family issues, especially like there's one particular case right now that I'm really struggling with because she gave a guardianship of her children while she was in the military, and I did too. So I have to catch myself from being like, no, don't do that. You know, and telling her that she needs to go get her kids back when maybe that's not best for her, but, you know, I have to catch myself because, you know, that's something that I personally experienced in the military. Anybody else?
Mine rides 2 lines, so professionally and personal. So professionally, what's difficult is, like Lisa was saying, you really do have to be flexible to work in every department, and especially when you're training towards your LCSW, you have to work in every area. And so you get pushed outside of your scope, you get pushed outside of what's comfortable. And so it's an adjustment period like every 2 to 3 months, and so you kind of are relearning everything. And so you kind of hit the back burner for a little bit. You're a little bit slow every couple months picking up new information, and it might not be in your interest. And so just kind of learning that you can pick up an experience from any area, whether it's necessarily what you're targeting for or not, you're gonna learn. And on the personal side, the transition from student intern and doing what I like in grad school to being active duty and having a job where I can't leave just because it's the end of the day, it doesn't work that way. Or, you know, taking like last minute calls. On Friday, I got a call at like 4:02, and it's like, you need to see this patient because you're last provider for the day. So just an adjustment. The way that you work and the professionalism is different.
I see like you were mentioning, the families, the deployment adds a whole realm of problems for families in the military. And so they know that when they come into it. We got some really strong families who, you know, kind of prepare, and they kind of become hardened to the deployment cycle. We have a lot of first-time deployers where the spouse does really well at first, but then they just, you know, it's hard. It's hard to have your spouse overseas. It's hard to keep the family in order. It's, you know, you're doing it all by yourself. You're losing your family support network that normally you have aunts and uncles and grandma and maybe some siblings around to help you with your kids. Well, when you're in the military, you get pulled away from that resource, and you're just in a new area. Your spouse gets deployed. Now you're trying to maintain by yourself with very limited social support. So the problem is that's an ongoing problem. We have a high divorce rate, you can imagine. Because of that, we have a lot of domestic violence also for the same reason. The ins and out of connection. You're connected, then you get pulled apart, and then you get reconnected. And that's hard for a mature couple, much less a young couple. So the stress rate is high in with deployments, and even just ship, I shouldn't say even just, going on a 6-month deployment on a ship, even though you're not in a war zone, is still a really tough cycle of process that they have to go through. So I would say number one struggle is dealing with deployment issues and separation in the family community that gets damaged with that.
On the civilian side, just to throw in, is access. Because I feel pretty comfortable with military population, veterans, and active duty and families, but sometimes the systems are in place to prevent them from getting access to providers like myself. Unfortunately, I just signed a contract today that Tri-West is going to open up VA opportunities to civilian providers. So I'm actually looking forward to the possibility that there may be some new pipelines for veterans who are limited in some capacity based upon access to go another way. So I'm hoping that some of us, like myself, who stand ready to kind of help, can actually help when it's appropriate. Because I've seen some limitations. I've had people that have got to me through their EAP because they're a veteran that said, "Wow, I've been trying to get help through the VA, and I would rather go to see you." So, you know, having that freedom of choice, I think, is frustrating for me to see our veterans go through that. So that's one of my frustrations.
I think the VA is is very slow. I mean, I am glad to hear that there are civilian providers because a lot of veterans that I work with are like, bump the VA, I don't want to go there. And they just don't want to go there. So I mean, I'm glad that.
Yeah, $4.2 billion contract for Tri-West just got released in September. And I just signed that contract today. So there's going to be, I think, a number of providers that are in the area that are going to be now available to hopefully take mental health overflow where the other providers aren't available in the system.
So just like your medical insurance, if you have medical insurance, the Navy has a TRICARE insurance, right? And it's contracted out with an HMO, for instance. So what he's talking about is we just went through this process of a brand new, it was Tri-West and now it's United Healthcare. And when they switched over, a lot of the resources that we used to use to refer out to the community are no longer TRICARE eligible.
Switched.
So now they're starting to recognize that there was no providers available for our family members to go out in town and see. It took a little bit of a rework, but those are the barriers we run into sometimes. In the active duty side, like Mary's, that we have a mental health department, and they can only see active duty because they're so overwhelmed with mental health issues with the families and the active duty folks that their spouses aren't eligible to be seen at the Navy. They have to go out in town. And when you have limited resources out in town, you can see the problem. So hopefully that's good. We're going to get back that.
My hope, because there's some good systems. All military members have the military one-source options available to them, and they each get 12 free sessions per member of the family. So you can technically work with the whole family over several different issues within a certain year. So the resources are there. Sometimes it's making sure everybody's aware of this information. You have a question?
That kind of related to what I was going to ask is like how, I think all of us have heard horror stories about the VA bureaucracy, how difficult it is to work with. How do you feel that it's hampered your social work?
Working with VA, how it's hampered your social work because they can't get into appointments is a nightmare, because of the way the system works. I'm an advocate for my veterans, and the first thing is that I have to get the veteran to tell me that they're having a problem. They're like, oh yeah, everything's good, because they want to hide and they want to be like, oh, everything's great, but you're broken. Like, why are you not going to the VA? And then I get a story, oh, well, I got told I can't have access to this, I can't do this, I have to wait until, one person doesn't have an appointment until August. I was like, what? Like, this is absolutely insane, and it's very, very difficult, and we're very limited on what we can do as social workers, because I have to go to their module of social workers and put pressure on them. And I have to maintain a relationship with them as well, because it has to work both ways. Like, I help them out, they help me out, and it can be very, very challenging working with the VA, and that's when you kind of work outside routes. You use the patient advocate, which can work with you or against you, and there's also other avenues as well if you want to be a real pain about it. I mean, it depends on what their issue is, There's always ways to get better service, but it's just very, very challenging. And you're going to hit a lot of closed doors. But I think the way that I can get around it is by relationships. I have a close relationship with a few key social workers to where we work really, really closely together, to where I feel like, hey, I really need some help with this. This is my veteran, blah, 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 blah. And they help me out. So I think really when you are in the social work field, relationships are key with other providers so that you can get good work done.
What Jan just mentioned about her VA, when somebody told me once, if you've gone to a VA, you've gone to a VA. I mean, none of them are the same. So every single VA in the country has a different pot of money and a different services provided, and it's not universal. So San Diego has one of the best VAs in the country because a lot of the military active duty folks retire and move to the VA and take jobs over at the VA. So the same quality of care from the active duty side follows right into the VA. But if you go somewhere else in the country, I tell people all the time, if you're thinking of getting out of the military, moving back wherever, and you're intending to get great care at your VA, you better look twice at your VA because sometimes the services aren't even available. They have to drive 200 miles to get to another VA for the service they're looking for. So our VA is awesome. It can be awesome. It can. The service is great. It's there to help our veterans, but there's no VA the same. So sometimes we run into barriers of care because of that.
Yeah, and I have one caveat too. You have to be mindful that you're living in the San Diego bubble, where there's Pendleton, there's Miramar, there's 32nd, there's Point Loma. There's so much military here. If you want to go back home and go to a different area, the military services will be completely different in those areas. And being in social work, just because you have an LCSW, does not mean that you're in mental health. There's plenty of social work to be done working with families in every department, whether you're maternal child or working in adult medicine or working on other teams. Being helpful towards people's families doesn't necessarily mean psychiatric care. So.
Mind you, the VA that I work with is Loma Linda, so I do work with a lot of rural areas. So it is a completely different ballgame. Down here in San Diego, there are resources falling from the sky. Whereas, like, you know, when I'm working with people in Hemet, it seems that, trust me, there's a whole lot more resources down here than there are up there in the San Bernardino and like Hemet, Rialto, all of those crazy places. Over the hill in Victorville, there's absolutely nothing up there. Like, you just have a vet center. Personally, I have a preference for vet centers. They're the ones that I go to for just about everything. Because they're just smaller, more contained. I don't know why, I just prefer the vet centers over the VA in general.
And I think if you went to a vet center are you in your second year already?
Some of us are.
If you're looking to an internship next year, I think a vet center would be a really great place to work for experience in mental health and some case management and a little bit of everything in the vet center. So I would highly recommend, if you can't get into Balboa or VA, that you try the vet centers as an internship, because you're still going to get the same. You're actually might even get a better clinical experience there.
Or even any of these nonprofits that work with veterans, because the VA is looking for experience with veterans. They're looking for experience working on a multidisciplinary team. You know, they're looking, oh, can you play nice with others? Oh, do you understand like the military life, whether if you're veteran or not? You know, any internship working with military would be, I think, beneficial if you're trying to get into the VA. Don't be disappointed if you don't get into the VA straight away. It might just take some time. Networking is key.
You might not know the answer to this, but do you know if the new Naval Hospital in Pendleton will have any internships available?
I don't know the answer to that
That's
question.
a great question, and actually we do know some social workers that are up there, so maybe we could just bug them that there's a potential for having internships. And you know, we love interns. We only have one right now this year because we had 5 of these active duty interns. But you know, you guys are sort of free labor, so we don't mind taking you. I'm sorry to say that, but it's true, right? You're free labor, and we love having the internship. And once that we get through that training stage and you can start doing the job, you become a serious asset for us. And then we hate to see you go. So maybe I'll tap into my buddy up at Camp Pendleton and ask if they'd be open to doing that.
They have a couple of jobs. I've seen a bunch of jobs for up in Pendleton, but the thing is that the LCSW is required. You know, but I've seen quite a few different jobs for different contractors out there.
Yeah, I'd say the other thing too is don't get discouraged if you don't get an internship in one of these VA systems. You know, you have to think about long term. What is your career goals? You know, because as a civilian LCSW, there are tons of opportunities to work with active duty and veterans. As you said, as contractors, I'm currently on a military family life consultancy program, and there's opportunities to go anywhere in the world. Sometimes there's short-term gigs, $50 an hour. I mean, sometimes travel per diem is all paid for. But if your vision long-term is to do this kind of work, don't just be short-sighted and think, well, I've got to get to the VA, I'm going to throw away my career working with veterans. There's so many opportunities. civilian, active duty military, VA. So just think, if you don't have this avenue, then go get some experience maybe working with a nonprofit. YMCA does great work with military families. And there's a lot of other agencies out there that aren't in the official pipeline, but they do a lot of good work. So look to get those experiences, because if your long-term goal is to have a career, LCSW or not, and work, there are opportunities out there. So just think big picture. Don't get discouraged. Don't get that internship.
Did you say you had your LCSW?
Not yet, LCSW.
Okay.
Not there yet.
She's got one more year,
One more year.
and she has to get it. So don't put the pressure on her right now.
Get there.
That's the program that they're in, is a 2-year program, so they have 2 years and 3 months to get their LCSW. Otherwise, it could be problematic for her.
I do not want to lose
They're
my
paid.
orders.
They're paid to go through the internship program in order to, but they have to get their license in order to continue. It's a lot of pressure.
The VA is similar, you have to get it in 3 years, right? 3 years is what you have to do when you get a VA job, but at least you meet your hours there. I think one of the challenges of working for a nonprofit, like for mine, I don't have anybody who can give me supervision. So I'm registered at the BBS, but I've been doing this for a year, and I have collected 0 hours because nobody can provide supervision. So I mean, when you are looking at these avenues, trying to find creative solutions to getting your hours, because the LCSW
Can you pay a licensed social worker?
You can, but I can't.
Okay.
If you want to volunteer for those events. No, I wish. No, we've tried.
There's ways to make it work, because you're right. If you do go to some place where there's none, where they don't have, you want to look at that. Some nonprofits are better than others, but a lot of nonprofits do provide supervision for that process.
Great question.
I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about your being a civilian LCSW, sort of how you got involved with the military, or what your experience has been, and what that transition was like, and sort of, because we've talked a little bit in school here just about some of the stigma about civilians working with the military, and I'm just curious about your experience.
Well, my experience started when I was a little boy. My dad was, like I said, in the Texas National Guard, so he was around helicopters. He was a crew chief, so I was familiar with military life. We didn't, he wasn't stationed anywhere, so we didn't move around, but that's what started. And so I've had a fascination with military. It's been bizarre that I've never served, because I just didn't want to sign the dotted line, I think, commitment. But the idea is it always being open to learn more. And so when I came to San Diego, I had no experience with the Navy. I mean, I'd never met somebody in the Navy except for my grandfather in World War II. So to me, it's just been a process of being open to just learning, always paying attention, trying to experience and understand because no, military member is the same. It's pretty obvious, but if you take a Marine and take somebody from the Navy, it's definitely opposite. But even take, 2 Marines, and there's some similarities, but you've got to understand the context in which they work. For me, I didn't really get much into working directly with the military until I got into private practice. And then the opportunities I had contractually were to work with Military One Source. They provide free sessions for military members. And that's when I started. And I started getting referrals from spouses, military spouses, active duty military children, and just began working, and found that because of my interest personally and just familiarity, is I had a comfort level. I was working, I would get Marines with anger management issues, which is actually a really good track record for some reason. Like 90% of the time I can do pretty well. So it's just understanding and really being available to listen and interchange and find solutions. Really, I find that a lot of the individuals I get referred, especially active duty, they want solutions. They're not coming to hang out in therapy. It's like, you have a problem, let's solve, let's get it done. And so you have to have that kind of attitude. Whereas somebody else may not have that approach. So it's just being really flexible. I've never experienced stigma per se. I'm not sure why. I've always been pretty open to feedback, so if I can sense that somebody's not getting what they're looking for, then I'm going to ask, what are you looking for? How can we make this experience better? How can we achieve the goals we need out of this process?
Yeah, exactly. I see, the stigma goes both ways. Being a civilian can be to your advantage, because then you come in with, a certain naivete about it. And especially when I'm working with enlisted members, and I have women that come in every week when you're single pregnant active duty female, spouse. They don't want to talk about their spouses or whoever they're seeing on the side because it's a rule break if they're dating someone in their division, someone off of their ship, someone higher, someone lower. So, I mean, it becomes a stigmatizing issue as well, being in uniform. And sometimes it's an insta-bond, so it works both ways. Sometimes it gives you a little in with the client because they know that you're on the same level, they feel comfortable talking to you, and sometimes it completely puts them off as well.
It's a really good point. An example would be I had a person come to me who was stationed on a ship, and we were talking about availability of someone to speak to, the difficulty they were going through. And the only person on the ship was a psychological officer, and the abbreviation is Psych-O. And so there's this like stigma of going to this person that has a name like Psych-O, who has a hand in possibly your military career. Talking about something that really is not really detrimental. They're not a safety risk for doing their job, but it's uncomfortable. And that stigma, you're right, that benefited me from being a civilian provider because I have no say-so over their lives. I'm somebody who can be relatively safe. So I've experienced that. And sometimes I'm frustrated though because once they deploy, then I can't continue the care because of the telemedicine pieces that are not in place yet. It's hopefully moving. I've advocated the best I could, but that's one of the frustrations I've often felt because I could work with somebody and all of a sudden they have to deploy. We'll see you when you get back. That may be 6 months, it may be a month, depending on the circumstances. So, yeah.
I've never had somebody say, you haven't done this job so you don't know what you're talking about. And even though I was military for a lot of years, I had to support the post-deployment. I was the post-deployment support officer. I mean, I had to be the ones to check in with folks when they got back from deployment. I hadn't deployed at that point. But I was able to see, just through your education and what PTSD is and what acute stress is and what some of the symptoms of the adjustment disorder are, when you know that, you can start kind of kind of like normalizing some of their experiences. And the more I worked with them, I could turn and go, I can't say that I've known this, but I have, through other people, seen that this is kind of a common thing that happens. And they go, oh my gosh, that's happening to me. And then, so just from my experience with others, I kind of learned how to talk to them about their deployment. And then I went on my own, and then I have, so now I just get it a little bit more even than I did before. But I did okay working with them without, you don't have to know everything. And just having that approach that's, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm open to whatever you want to talk about, is going to, just the human connection is probably the most important than anything else. They won't care if you don't have prior military experience. Really, they won't. As long as you understand enough to understand what's happening for them.
It helps to know a few things.
Yeah, it helps to know a few things, but you'll get that.
Being prior, in the veterans, it can work for me and it can work against me.
Yeah.
It works for me because it's instant connection. Oh, you understand what it is to be government property. Okay, so you get it. Because all the guys that I work with are enlisted, but that works against me sometimes because I understand Navy and Marine Corps. And I understand a little bit about Air Force. I know nothing about the Army. So, and I work with a lot of Army. So I'm really at square one, and I think we have a couple of civilian interns that are working with our veterans. They haven't had too hard of a time connecting. I think, it's just that human connection really, really matters. And it doesn't matter what your background is, as long as these people feel heard and that you care. I mean, really, I think that's what it ultimately boils down to. So don't worry, people won't hate on you because you're civilian.
They might even because
Right, they might even like you.
the chain of command and stuff, things you have to worry about.
I think if I was a prior officer, it might be a little different, but I was prior enlisted, so, because some of these guys say they have problems with the pillar, so they may not have.
Why did you guys choose military social work? Out of all the other places that you could have gone, why military?
Because I was military, I did have that love, and I didn't get to stay in the military system like you. When I graduated from San Diego State, I had to go out in the community and find jobs to get my licensing hours done because they had just changed the law to require an LCSW with the Department of Defense prior to me getting my degree. So I went out and worked in foster care, completely separate from the military. I worked in foster care for a while, county mental health with children, county mental health with adult, county mental health with children. And then it just happened that I ran into a lieutenant commander who was moonlighting, that they call moonlighting, as a psychiatrist at one of the county facilities, and I didn't even know it because I always saw him in civilian clothes. And one day we're talking about the military, and I said, oh, I'm prior Navy, and he goes, you are? And I said, yeah. And he goes, oh, do you want a job? I have a job opening right now. I mean, it was that kind of thing that happened just by being in the right place at the right time. And I always intended to get back into the Department of Defense. That was just my goal of working with the military families, just because I did want to be part of that process, but that was my goal personally.
For me, most of my family is military, and seeing a lot of what happened to veterans coming back from Vietnam, just even with my own family members, and kind of the way that people look at them funny. And my uncle has a lot of stuff going on, and I did a lot of research in my undergraduate degree on Vietnam veterans who had been diagnosed late term with PTSD, and then also had comorbid heroin addictions. And the more I did research on that, and the more I did research on graduate school, the more I looked around at programs. The USC program just really had my interest with being able to work with military, so I came out here, ended up doing my internship the first year with DODEA, Education Activity Grant, and working with military families in Escondido, and then had my second year internship at Balboa, and it really sealed the deal for me. But I loved working with families. I loved being at Balboa. I loved all the staff. So it was like
She has to say that. I told her she had to say that.
No, and our department head, Commander Binkley, and I had a good relationship through one of the professors here as well. So she had been talking with me back and forth about, well, we have this opportunity, this is available, you gotta apply, you gotta apply, you gotta apply. And I was like, sure, So I was very hard set on working with the military from then on. So I just love my job. I can't picture being anywhere else, working with any other people than working with the military. I love it.
I don't know if I really chose it. I think it chose me. I think it just kind of happened that way. Because I'm not in a position where I'm solely 100% working with just veterans in the military, I enjoy it now, and I don't see myself not doing it. In fact, I'd like to do it more. But I think it's one of those things that I just kind of had a natural attraction to through friends, through family, being around Army helicopter pilots, and they're weird, believe me. These are all Vietnam veterans coming back, and they were told they're just, crazy people. But, that opened my eyes to the possibility of just working in a variety of contexts. And so now, I very much enjoy it. And like I said, I don't think see it differently, but I don't know if I really actively chose it and then decided, hey, this is what I'm going to do. But I'm glad I did.
I don't know. I'm prior, and I was a military spouse. My husband was stationed on the Mobile Bay out here, and we were in the military housing that's right across the street from MCRD. And I was just graduated my bachelor's, and I was like, I don't want to do social work. I don't want to do that. And then I seen this program that had the military sub-concentration. I was like, ooh, I have experience in that. That might work. So, and I came, and I did the DODEA thing, and that was good. And I think it's just, I've tried to get out, and I just keep coming right back. Keep coming right back. I did my second year internship at Senator Boxer's office, and what made me unique in her office was that I had this military perspective, and it's a hot button issue in politics. So I was able to provide a little bit more perspective on how these different policies are out in the field and everything that's happening, for me, I was a COPA student, so this micro level work is not my strong suit, but I have found that I really want to work with women veterans because I think they're a greatly underserved population throughout the VA and still in the military, really. And veteran spouses are grossly underserved as well. And I think it just trickles down from, when they're active duty military, the spouses are kind of just like, oh, you're just a spouse. They celebrate the military child, but they don't really do a lot for the spouse, and so for me, that kind of irritates me because the spouse really does a lot, and, so I think it's just my passion to just help women and that are associated with the military is what just really kept me in,
Unless they retire from the military. military, their spouse loses their medical, like, so while they're active duty, they both get that medical benefits, but as soon as the active duty gets out, only the veteran gets VA benefits, and the spouse is left without benefits.
Yeah, and they're not provided any mental health supports, within the VA unless they are a caregiver. I mean, it's crazy.
Unless they retire. If they retire, they continue their medical benefits, but if they just get out after 4
Yeah.
years, or 6 years, or 8 years, the veteran continues to get medical care, but the spouse doesn't. It's a challenge for us.
Yeah.
If you could use, if you could use the knowledge that you have now from working with military, from when you began working with military, what do you think that you could have told yourself now that you could have used at the beginning?
Fresh with it. That's too long ago.
I don't know. It's pretty fresh. It's still learning. I don't know what I tell myself. Be patient. Trust the process. Chill out. Good progress is slow progress. You can't change these people in 5 sessions. You can't change them in 5 months. It takes time. You have to be patient with yourself, and you have to be patient with them. I think that's the main thing I've learned. Is that about right?
Hey, is that
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So since working with this population can be very intensive and there can be some really complex issues, what do you do to prevent burnout?
You might not have prevented it with GVA.
I don't know. Right, I know, right?
Honestly, I've been doing this a long time, so I can tell you that just recently the hospital picked up a MindBody Medicine. I don't know if you've heard that term yet, but that's getting to be a real big push for hospitals and military and everybody. It's called MindBody Medicine, but it really is self-care, relaxation, yoga, meditation, different things in the self-care realm of just taking time to take care of yourself. So the Navy Hospital just opened a program. We got trained in March, and we're doing it in doing pain management. We've had one guy, a Marine, that said we saved his life, not me personally, but the teachers that taught the class of self-care. Because we can do procedures all day, and we can give them a million medications and narcotics. But the bottom line is if their body is stressed out, and if they're stressed out in general, then they're losing their ability to heal. So this kid, he's our spokesperson now, he was the first class, he said we saved his life because he was a Marine, he was getting to the point where he thought, this is my life with this chronic pain, I don't know if I want to live it. And he went through this mind-body medicine class and learned self-care, meditation, yoga, different types of virtual visualizations and whatever you can do, just mindfulness, yeah. So he did that, and he learned a lot of skills that he now has used, and his pain has diminished significantly. He's off most of his meds, and he's got his life back. And so MindBody Medicine has worked for me. I've gone up and down with burnout, and depending on what job I'm in, but self-care is definitely so critical. Spending time with friends, taking care of yourself, exercising, just doing some MindBody Medicine stuff is definitely helpful.
So you see alternative therapies as being more accepted?
Right now, yes. It's a huge new thing for the Navy Hospital. We're doing it for oncology patients. We're doing it in pain management. We're doing it in OBGYN. We're doing it with staff. I mean, we've got approval to have staff members get training for 12 hours of free time off to go to class. We're doing mental health. So it's a brand new program, but it's widely used. Other places that have been onto this for a long time, but the Navy's just finally catching on. And it's kind of going through the military department of defense. It's picking it up slowly too. Wounded Warrior sort of brought that on, the Wounded Warrior programs, because they were running into ruts. They couldn't get people to get better. And they were realizing that they can do all the procedures and all the medicines all day, but there's something missing, and it was the self-care piece, of being able to calm the body.
Now they're discovering that once you get out of your mind, some great things can actually start happening. We are way too cognitive oftentimes, and so sometimes when we get into therapy or clinical work, we over-focus on the mind, and we lose a lot of the healing properties that the body naturally brings. And so you connect that with mind and body for your clients, but it's also important as clinicians, I think, our social workers too. You get out and you connect your mind and body. I mean, you can't just think all this stuff away. You got to go do stuff. Sometimes it's the act of not thinking so much. So whatever you do that could be doing that, it's volleyball or soccer or gardening or something, that's appropriate. that, you know, you want to kind of de-stress your life. It's like that with working with any difficult clients. I mean, I work in the drug and alcohol field, you know, and that's stressful to see pregnant or parenting women who got their children removed, excuse me, and to deal with all that, you know, and the stress of that and take that home. And so you've got to find ways to deal with that. It's no different than dealing with somebody's traumatic stress from, you know, deployments or, you know, being shot at or having to kill, you know, in their country's name. So whatever you do, the self-care is very important.
Even the scientific evidence is showing that 20 minutes a day can actually change your body cells. I mean, it's changing your cells and it's lasting all day. So when we get our wounded warriors to do 20 minutes a day of meditation, and they can start calming down the body, and then that's what's causing their inflammation. You can get rid of inflammation cells and things like that. So they can now start healing, and then their pain starts diminishing. So just 20 minutes a day for you all too can make a huge difference. I'm a firm believer. I've been doing meditation now for about 6 months, and it's changed my life.
I'm not that disciplined to do meditation. You know, for me, I have like multiple strategies. I haven't found anything that really works yet. I just signed up for it's actually for the meditation. It's the Oprah Winfrey thingy.
21-day meditation
thing. Yeah, I'm gonna try that. How long is it gonna last? For me, when I have very difficult clients, you know, some of these guys can really hit you at home, and it's really important to maintain your composure while you're sitting with them. And usually, sometimes I've had, I've left and I've gone to my car and I cry and I get it out, and then I watch a funny video. You know, you just pull it up on your phone, you watch a funny video when you're super stressed, because laughter, in my opinion, heals. I'm going to try this meditation.
The Oprah Challenge, I really recommend. It started yesterday, but you could probably still catch up.
It's free to register right now.
Free to register, 21 days, 10 minutes a day.
And I think one of the main things that that I really struggle with is work-life boundaries. Work is not your life, and life is not your work. So I turn my phone off. After working hours, it's off, unless there's some kind of major crises that I know is somewhat happening. And that was hard for me at first, because I was like, I'm here to serve. I want to help these people. I want to save everybody. No, you can't save everybody. Like, it's just not possible. So turning your phone off when you're not at work helps you turn your brain off when you're not at work. I don't know if you can't turn off your phone. I don't know, can you turn off yours?
I leave mine in the office. So for me, for self-care, I mean, it's difficult because there are the days that drag, but it's not every day. And it's, some days you leave early too, so it goes both ways. It's a lot of leaving work at work. I don't talk about work after hours with my friends. I don't talk about work after hours with my family. I mean, it stays at work, because one, it's inappropriate to really talk about clients outside the workspace. Two, I've got great supervision, so I get to unload that.
She goes
every
again.
week.
I told her 2 times.
I know. Well, really, I mean, especially while you're interning, supervision has got to be your rock for discussing difficult cases and for getting feedback on what you're doing and for calming down some of that stress about performing and making sure that you're taking the right steps. Your supervision should be guiding you. And just because you get your LCSW doesn't mean you're done getting supervision. I mean, in the office, I don't know how many times everybody calls everybody else trying to figure out what they should do. It's so common, and just enough to hear validation about what you're doing is the right thing. You're on the right track. Stick with it is good to relay, with other people that you're on the right track, and to kind of bring that stress down. For me, it's physically draining to sit for half of my day and be at a computer hunched over because I'm 6 feet tall. So I go and get massages every other week. I go out on the weekends. I don't talk to anybody on the weekend. I go out with my friends, go out with the other ensigns. Anything outside the office, anything away from work is mindful for me to kind of decompress. So, and eating really good, because if you eat really poorly and you wake up really tired and then you just kind of drag the rest of the day and you drink 8 pots of coffee like me and Commander, then it doesn't make your evenings too well. So I try and eat really, really well and working out more as well.
I'm really bad at self-care,
I plan it.
Yeah.
Put it in the planner and Stick with it.
Give me something fried and covered in chocolate.
That's those stress cells in you working at work. 'Cause if you're stressed, you go for the bad food, right? You guys are probably all in that right now in graduate school. Probably all in stress.
I think I need transplantation.
And you don't have to have any credentials to do MindBody work. So if you get into that on your own and start working on the MindBody stuff on your own, you can just put that on your resume as being familiar with MindBody, and whether you're a yoga person or doing the hatha yoga or whatever you're doing personally, when you can speak to that and put that on your resume, because that's becoming a very highly desirable kind of trait to have, is having that other side, which is the non-clinical side. But sometimes you need a tool in your toolbox when you're dealing with a patient. And just today I had a walk-in. It was a son who's active duty, and he's got his mom as a disabled dependent. And she's really in bad shape, and they have a lot of anxiety. They're pretty they even call themselves codependent. And but one of the things that they weren't doing, and we talked about her self-care, and he was saying, "Mom, I want you to take care of yourself." And we talked about what that meant. And I love having the tool of MindBody Medicine. They hand him a little card to say, "Go to this website, and there's all these great downloads you can put on to do a meditation 20 minutes a day." Well, that's doable for her. And if she said, "Oh, I used to," she kind of like, "Oh, I used to do something like that." And it's just a great tool to have in your toolbox as a social worker. And it can help. I said if we all walked around doing meditation everybody did meditation every day, we'd be a much better society, trust me. And so it's a nice tool to have in your toolbox to hand to folks, get them to help them with their stress level. Any other questions?
You guys talked a lot about working with the vets, but working with the active duty, do you work with the combat arms a lot? Because I know as a former infantryman, we wouldn't come seek out help, because literally seeking out help meant our career was done the day we did it, because you turn your weapon in. They're not going to hand someone who's seeking mental health a weapon. Do you have any kind of engagement that you deal in that particular?
We try to embed psychiatrists and psychologists with the special forces so that they don't chart in the same medical record as everybody else does. So we've kind of come to that determination that folks that need help aren't going to get help if it's going to impact their security clearance. With the reserves, I can say when I talk to security forces, first thing I tell them is I don't write anything down. It's the best gig in the world that I get to meet. I call myself, we are consultants. We meet with the member, we find out what's going on for them, and we try to lead them in a direction to get some help. Maybe military one source, which doesn't come back to the military, or some way to get them help. But it is definitely an issue that we deal with, because there's 3 things that won't affect your security clearance, and that's post-traumatic stress, grief counseling, and there's one more. Adjustment disorder. That's a patriotic person. So 3 diagnoses that won't get you lose your security clearance right now. The federal government has cleared them, and that's post-traumatic stress. You won't lose your security clearance as long as you get treatment, and grief counseling, because it makes sense if you've been to war and you've had issues of buddies getting lost, and adjustment disorder, which is almost everybody comes back from employment. And if it's not one of those 3, you can get treatment and you won't get
marital counseling as well,
Marital.
and also anything that they deem traumatic, according to the second half manual of Tibetan page G16, subsection C. Anything that's treatable. So, like if you get in a car accident, I had one of my Marines, somebody actually rear-ended him and died, and it was another active duty Marine. So our command tried to take his clearance, and I went, no, can't do that.
Right.
So
we tried it, but that message is, there's an old fear that doesn't go away with a lot of our troops to come in and get help. So we've done little strategies to try to get them care. Military one source is a great strategy, and then we've embedded some folks that. One time I had a guy that came in, he said he was a SEAL, and he told me he's really agitated in the ER. And I said, "So are you seeing someone?" He said, "Oh yeah, my doc is so-and-so." And I knew the guy, and I knew the psychiatrist, and I'm like, "Okay." And I said, "Well, let me go check out some things, I'll come back." I went and looked at his medical record, and there's not a peep in his medical record. I'm like, okay, this is creepy. But I understood what was happening is that he was a special forces guy with who knows what kind of background and what he's been exposed to. And so they don't put his stuff in the medical record. They get him, he's seen on the side by a psychiatrist and in the special ops world who's probably documenting on a piece of paper that is never going to end up with that.
Because I actually have a friend of mine that was a SEAL. We talked about this because this special ops community actually sought contracting for clinicians to be a part of that, and if they created a very anonymous process, and I was very glad to see that, but I don't think it's as common as it needs to be. I don't know if all units are doing it, but he felt it was one of the most helpful things he had ever heard of happening for his command, was to have clinicians available. And I actually knew one of the clinicians, and she said she thought it was going to be months before she'd have a full load. It took maybe a week or two, and she was booked. Because of the flexibility that she was available to wherever. It was very anonymous. It was, again, keeping in the bounds of certain aspects of what they were allowed to do, but it was very useful and very sought after. I would like to see it in more units across the other branches of service, because I agree with you. There's a stigma associated with going and seeing somebody who is combat arms.
Do you think it's just basically forces, like special forces in the Army or the Navy SEALs and all that? Do you think it filters down to the
Master Arms and
regular-
security
regular
forces?
combat runs?
Probably not, probably not.
Probably, yeah. The best I've heard is some of the combat stress teams the Army's doing, where they're actually active duty, typically an MSW or an LCSW, and then an NCO assigned to two-man teams or two-person teams to go out in some of the field. But that's the best I've heard of in a real type of combat situation.
We do that as well for IA. Navy will go IA, like Lieutenant Commander Naro, if you guys have her for classes or if you see her on campus, she teaches here as well. Had an IA to Afghanistan where that's what they did, went and checked in on other IAs. We do operational stress control as well on the Navy Marine Corps side, but it's very few and far between. There's one for each Marine division, so that's 3 providers in the whole Marine Corps. It's very short. I think the issue though too, having a weapon is always at the discretion of your commanding officer. And so if your commanding officer is fearful that you're suicidal or homicidal, and they have jurisdiction to do anything they like with you, and because we have boxer holds and boxer evaluations in the military under that law, your CO can request that you go and seek mental health. They have to justify it and all these things, but the second you have an evaluation, if we are concerned about suicidality or homicidality and you have a hold in the hospital on a psychiatric hold, even if it's a 3-day restrictive hold, we're just evaluating you and watching you, that has to get reported, and so that's where your weapons get removed, and it goes to the Department of Justice, and all those things get filed, so
Just remember also that the military's intent is to not harm you, is to help you. So I know that's why I said the old school, they don't want to go for that. But people have gotten their weapons back. I mean, the intent is to come into treatment, get treatment, and they're no longer, maybe 10 years, 15 years ago, they were kicking people out. They came in for one mental health treatment, they would kick them out, and they're like, oh, unstable, not fit for duty. Now we want to treat the person, get them back on track, get them back to their duty station, let them have their weapon back, and we want them to be stable with the weapon, not unstable with the weapon, right? So we prefer that they get treatment and go back to work when they're better. But that definitely takes some guts by the member to come forward, because there's still that old stigma of they'll lose their career permanently, but that's not the case. We have people in the military come in, get help, get in psychiatric inpatient treatment, and they still go back to work. As soon as they get them back off the cliff, we get them back to work, and they're back full time, and there's no stigma attached to that. So it's not the same as it used to be 10 years ago.
Needs better PR. And I think this is long term, because Customs and Border Patrol has a great model where they actually train a lot of their officers to spot their own colleagues that might be, especially after deadly force encounters or something. And so they immediately identify it's peer-to-peer. And so then they're able to kind of use the EAP, and again, there's no stigma attached. It's like, okay, we encourage you, let's go use this, because they want officers that can handle the weapon. I mean, they have a sidearm everywhere they go. So, but they have to trust that there's a process, and if there's evaluate out, then we go get help, and then we give you back on duty. But they've done a pretty good job, because they've embedded and had a lot of work training officers and psychologists and social workers to get the word out that we're not trying to take your weapon, we're trying to help you out and help you get better. So it'll take a little bit more PR.
Alfonso, he was one of the students in our cohort. He works at the MCRD. He's like a behavioral support specialist. Don't quote me, I don't remember what his total title is. But he was telling me that, in the Marine Corps, they're trying to bring in these different social workers or clinicians using, I think the contractor is either Magellan or it's just the don't quote me. But,
Mental health,
men-
SPAs,
well, no, he said
civilian contractors.
that they're bringing in folks who aren't gonna be taking any notes. There's no notes whatsoever. You just come in, you provide assistance, and then, you know, they carry on. So it's slow change, but it's change. You know, it's too late, but at least it's coming. You know, I think, you know, focusing in on like, maybe it didn't happen for you or for others that are coming out now, but it's in the works. And I think the military is keenly aware that people aren't seeking treatment. And I've seen it just in my veterans as well, you know, that they refuse to seek treatment. And that carries over for a long time.
Yeah, the military is very aware that they've exposed people to abnormal events that no one should be exposed to. I mean, that's the bottom line with deployment and war, is that we've exposed our troops to really abnormal events, which is why the acute stress disorder, PTSD come up. But we're definitely trying, and it takes, like I used to tell one guy, he said, "What if I was suicidal, Major Hez, I ain't coming to see you." And I'm like, well, I'd rather you come to see me than be 6 foot under. I mean, we're talking about death versus, you know, you'd rather save your career and die than come in and see me and put your career on the line a little bit. I mean, you know, the intent was to get them back on track, but that's a fear that's real in the military. Come forward and you might lose your career. That's what the fear is, but we're trying to do it.
So along those lines, is that do you feel that, just from your impressions, that the idea of embedding is helping kind of move that in that direction, sort of through the back doors?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We did, one of our social workers, Chris Ragsdale's lieutenant, pretty new in the military, he went right to Camp Pendleton as a social worker in the field with the Marines, dressed like the Marines, got the haircut like the Marines, went out, and it was grab him by the shirt collar and say, "Hey, I got a guy here, come see this guy, I got that guy, come this way." And it just didn't feel the same like mental health, because he's embedded with them, he's getting to know them, he's PTing with them, he's doing his physical training, yeah. So he's out there in the field with those guys and women, and so they're coming forward, they're willing to see him because he's one of them. So it's definitely working. It's embedded.
And I know that Lieutenant Julie Barber, as well as at 3rd Marine Division, Okinawa, she just got exposure. We got the MSC mailer today from Rear Admiral Moulton, and she got a good kudos and some extra business in the MSC update. People are starting to notice the work that we do. It's difficult because between budget cuts and Marines already being quite broke, they have to buy those billets from the Navy, and it's difficult to get it in everywhere you go. And so I think it's just a slower process than we would like. I mean, social workers are all about, like, you know, get in there now, fix it now, lots of crisis, this, that, and the other, and it doesn't move that way in the military. The military is a little bit slow. Not that they don't want, it's not that they want to be behind the curve, it's just that it takes time to get things moving because it's got to go up the chain and down the chain and up the chain and down the chain, so.
One of the things I also do, and you'll see a fluctuation go towards this, is you've heard all military sexual assault stuff in the news, and that's one of my roles as a reservist, as sexual assault response coordinator. That's what I was deployed as, a SARC, what they call a SARC. And so every time that hits the news and media, the DOD goes crazy, and you know, more stuff comes down. But you'll start seeing, like Gina was saying, she wants to work with women vets, but they're not only women vets. I mean, we have male victims too. In fact, it's gone up quite a bit in the last year or so, it seems like. But we have sexual assault is going to be an area that you're going to see the military put a lot of money into in the near future, because they've sort of tapped into some money and they've sort of given some support to it, but the results keep coming back the same. We're still not making a dent in the cases of sexual assault within the military. And I'm not saying that the military is just a bunch of aggressive animals, you know, raping other people, because it's the same as college campuses, but it's an environment that sort of leads to sexual assault, just like college campuses lead to sexual assault. With the young population, alcohol and substance abuse. So you're going to see, maybe for you guys, if anybody's interested, keep your eye out for jobs in that arena, because there's going to be more and more money push that direction to try to stop sexual assault in the military to the level it's at right now.
There's a lot of movement in that.
A lot of movement.
A lot of movement.
Especially
Yeah. There's a policy actually that's up, I think, for Senate, where they're trying to take who decides whether or not a case gets filed in, we're going to try and take it out of the military, out of the commanding officers. And I think it's before the Senate right now, right? Or is it
there,
before the House?
there was actually a group of retired JAGs that said they were the ones that came up with this idea of removing it from a commander. Why do you think it's bad for a commander to be in charge of the penalty for one of their troops, or one of the commanders?
Because if it's one of those good soldiers, sailors, airmen, and marines, then they get less.
So we all have three personas, right? We have a professional persona, and then we have our private with our friendship personal persona, our social one, and then we all have a private persona. And we're not the same always in all three. Most of the time, we're pretty consistent, but we're not the same in private as we are. We're crankier in private, maybe if you're cranky at home. But our professional persona, you can be a Jeffrey Dahmer and have an actual career going and be chopping up people or, at night. So we know that it's true. We know that's true for rapists too. So when a commander sees their rapist being charged, some guy being charged or a person being charged as with rape, and they're stellar performers, the commander can't really wrap their head around that this guy could also be a rapist. He could be a stellar performer, he could be a rapist. And it happens over and over and over. We have these stellar performers getting charged with rape. And it doesn't match up. And so they're really fighting that commander role. It makes sense to fight the commander role because the commanders can't wrap their head around their high performer being also a rapist. It just doesn't add up for them. So they keep letting folks off the hook, unfortunately, because they don't understand the persona process in the process. That's going to be an you're going to see a lot more attention focused on sexual assault prevention. Because if we can change it in the military, then we can also, it trickles into the society, right? So we're trying to lead the way.
I think the military is always ahead of the game of any social change. I mean, they were the first to integrate. They were the first to, and I think women, that's the only place where women are paid the same, and, the military is good. They're always ahead of the power curve, really, when it comes to that, I think, right?
We're a social experiment.
Yeah, yes, right? Right.
So
Got
we're
shots
research
of things we don't even know if we got. Yeah, anthrax, yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, it's okay, I'm jumping in, but I'm just curious, in terms of from the active duty perspective, or all across the board, but I'm really interested in hearing a little more about what preventative care happens, sort of prior to deployment and prior, because I feel like so much of our mental health focus for the military is post-trauma, post-deployment, and I feel like other countries focus on a more sort of three-dimensional before, during, and after. And I'm just curious what your perspective has been in terms of, sort of the preparation and
We have a resiliency program, it's called. It's pre-deployment resiliency training. And so we do try to get folks resiliency trained, which is just basically taking, being able to recognize stress levels and being able to identify when you're starting to have issues while you're on deployment. So you're telling them all the things that might happen to you to prepare them on, and what's worked for folks and what hasn't worked and what they can do to prepare. So journaling and exercising and eating right, and healthy appetites, and getting good night's sleep. And we try to do resiliency training to prepare them for what they should expect in deployment. But when you're in deployment in a war zone, you can't really prepare for that fully. But so some people can become very resilient, and some people come back, and there's no real reason why who gets PTSD and who doesn't, except for this kind of basic resiliency skills that they had prior to deployment. So it could even go back all the way to childhood. They had built up good resiliency skills from childhood, and they might do better in deployment. They might not. They might have additional trauma.
I think part of it too, you do training workups, Marines especially, you train and train and train. You could be in 4 years and never deploy, but you've been on plenty of training workups. It's not that they don't train, and it's not that they don't try to prepare you, but I don't think it's normative to be out in an open space getting shot at. There's nothing they can do to prepare you to watch somebody die. It's not a normal human experience. And so, as much as you try to prepare someone, they're gonna come back with things, and they do a lot of decompression time, especially with Marine units. They hold them together. You're not allowed to take your leave right off the bat. You're supposed to decompress. And for the Navy, they have Tiger Cruise when you're having that last sail back. They send providers from Fleet and Family out. They send providers out on these ships to have discussions. They have the chaplains doing their rounds. Chaplains are out there all the time. You know, they've really got the in. Chaplains are in like the money.
Because they're 100% confidential.
Right,
No matter
and they
what
don't
they
have to
do.
chart, they don't do anything. So chaplains have a way out, you know, you can always talk to chaplain. And it's not that they, I don't see that there's a need to prepare for it, but it's how do you prepare someone to watch your buddy bleed out, and especially for corpsmen or other people that are caregivers. They take it so hard. You know, corpsmen see a lot of things. And they get a lot of, you know, grief about being corpsmen, oh, you live up at the posh building, and then when they get deployed, it's not.
I agree. I don't think you can really teach somebody how to handle it. I take it one step further. You're teaching people how to kill. I mean, we improved our effectiveness kill rate from Vietnam, from Korea to Vietnam, from 50% to like 95%. Just accuracy training. We taught people how to kill better. And we could send people to Vietnam and we wonder why they have post-traumatic stress. But it's the same kind of thing. I mean, teaching people to kill is just not something that's normal in our society. Even with police officers, we don't really teach them to kill. They kill because they maybe have to in a very particular set of circumstances. But we're teaching these warriors how to kill people. So I don't think you can prepare. You can do a lot of resiliency. You can do a lot of stuff, but that's a very personal experience. Everybody handles it different. I mean, I've seen, I have a lot of good friends that are Navy SEALs, and I've talked to many of them, and they had been in prior to these theaters, and many of them had killed in their service. And then one day, a particular kill just affected them differently. So over the lifespan, things change. So it's never perfect. I think we're going to learn a lot from these experiences, and probably for the next one, be better prepared. But I don't think there's a perfect way. It's gotten better since probably Vietnam, but it's not perfect. Right? So hopefully, people will come forward, new strategies, new ideas about how to create the best possible. It'll never be 100% because it's unnatural.
When I was on deployment and I came back, and my son was about 1, when we came back, and they got us all together, and they had these Fleet and Family support people, like blah, 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 and I was like, I don't have a problem. I don't know what y'all talking about. I don't have a problem. I got home, I had a problem. So it wasn't until after I had a problem that I actually was like, there is this, like, my son didn't know who I was when I came back, and, and how that affected me. They were talking about it, I remember words, but I think and as far as in the military spouse for deployment and stuff, I think there's a lot out there, but the people have to want it and be open. And I think we want to force it down them, like prevention, like you have to listen, you have to, this works. Well, like some people don't want any part of it, and that, lots of different spouses are like, yeah, I get it, he's gonna be gone, thank you, bye. And some of the kids, I think with the children, I think we have more of a chance of working with the prevention because they're a little bit more open, and I think in schools is key. And, there's lots and lots of programs out there. There's the big Operation Bigs, which is really helpful for my son because my husband was gone all the time, and the Operation Bigs gave him a positive male role model. And there's another program, but they have all these different programs, for kids. But when it comes to like the spouses and families, you won't hear from them unless they have a problem. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I was like Gina too. I came back thinking that, well, I'm a mental health provider. I teach this stuff. It's not going to happen to me. And I came back kind of like you and said, I'm good. I'm golden. And then about the 90-day mark, I was sitting at my job, and it's bad when you hang out with mental health people. I was sitting at my job, and the phone rang, and I picked it up, and it was my friend who's a psychiatrist, and she goes, "How you doing?" And I started bawling. And she said, "I'll be right there." And she comes over and she's like, "What's going on?" I go, "I think I'm leaving my job today." And she goes, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I'm moving out of my house. I think I'm moving back to Illinois." And she's like, "What?" She's like, "You're going nowhere. Sit down here. Let's talk about this." And I was hitting a wall, a deployment, post-deployment wall. I don't know. It's hard to explain except for you just kind of want to get away. You don't want to, your life isn't sort of falling into place the way you thought it would, so you kind of have a desire to escape from it. And I don't think there's anybody that deploys for any period of time that isn't going to go through something like that. when they get back, because it's just impossible to kind of slip back into your life. Your life is different, it's changed, and you're trying to pick back up the pieces. And you know, I noticed the commute was not the same. The first day I was like, this is my commute? Oh my God, you know, I'm gonna get killed out here. These people are terrible, you know. So just little things, and trying to get back into work. It was really a weird adjustment period. And so you have to be willing to say, okay, something's not right. I'm hitting a wall here, what can I do? And I tried Military One Source, it didn't work for me, so I ended up just finding deployment health folks and got a great psychologist to help me through it. I only saw her a few times and just got my head kind of wrapped around what was happening, and back on track, I was within a few sessions. So I don't think there's anybody that couldn't benefit from post-deployment mental health, but you know, you see a lot of people the younger guys, you know, I was older, so the younger guys be out there just doing road rage or driving their motorcycles 120. That's their way of trying to do what I was doing, which was sort of I wasn't drinking or anything, I was just in a state of wanting to escape. And if I had been drinking, it could have been even worse. If I had been on a motorcycle, it would be even worse, right? So that's what you might be seeing when you run into these guys, that desire to escape. Any other questions, comments? Yes, ma'am.
For those of us who are interested in going into military social working, what would you say the key skills we ought to have in coming to work with the military?
It goes back to just that make that human connection. I've gotten more success by going to an 80-year-old and saying, so what do you like to cook, you know, than I'd say to her about her family. I don't need to talk about her family, you know, it's beyond past her, but I can say, what do you like to cook and what's your favorite thing to do? And I'll start talking about something that's completely benign, nothing mental health related, but I make that human connection, and that's what it takes. So no matter what age, just getting used to walking in, don't have your agenda of how, this is what I'm going to say to these people, go in and just have an open conversation. They'll know it if you're being genuinely just want to know what's going on. You'll get good at that.
I think it's the same social work skills across the board, right? Being able to build rapport, having plenty of things in your toolbox, you know, as many free trainings as you can get while you're a student. That's what I did, right? Second year I was gone at trainings all the time, you know, because they're free when you're a student, or they're really, really cheap. So take as many as you can, because there's nothing better than, you know, if something doesn't work, toss it in the can, move to the next. And just don't be rigid. You know, some clients don't come in the door because they want to tell you everything about everything. Sometimes they just need a fix on one thing, and that's your buy-in. You just don't try to be, like she's, you know, there's no agenda, right? Go in, they're here asking for help, or they're here because they need the help. They're not necessarily asking, but if you can make something available to them that's to their advantage to take it, you know, come off like cupcakes, you know, get the work done.
I don't have anything to add. I mean, it's perfect. I think that flexibility is huge. I mean, not having an agenda is key across the board. But if somebody's coming into your office, you got to assume they do want something from you. So sit back and let the process happen. I had a great supervisor who told me the battle of initiative in therapy is lost by the clinician. So the client has the initiative. So let them have the initiative. Just sit back and kind of let the process unfold. Be genuine with it. If you don't have an answer, don't make one up. You know, say, oh yeah, well, according to so-and-so, and quote some BS out of your head, so you know what, I don't know if I have the answer to that. But you know what, I'd be glad to help find out, if you would permit me the opportunity. And so, you know, wherever that's, you know, wherever you can come from a personal experience with that, you know, that's the key goal.
Don't assume you know. You know, let them tell you. I mean, it's just like I said, no agenda. You know, I have no agenda when I go in, unless it's 1 to week. Then I have an agenda. Then, you know, for me, I struggle because, you know, I'm a case manager. I'm not a mental health, you know, clinician. I'm a case manager. But sometimes I have to be hardcore, where I'm like, pay rent, or you have to go. We're going to give you 3-day notice. I don't want to do that. Like, I really don't, you know. But, like, sometimes, you know, just being open-minded and don't go in with an agenda unless you're paying rent.
If you want to know more about the military, there's some great military. I mean, right now there's some really great books about deployment and understanding it. I prefer not to read them, honestly, and I don't watch the war movies either, because I feel like I don't need that to know, and so I think that would just mess me up worse if I watched all the movies and read the books. But if you really want to know what's out there and what people are going through, then read a few military books that are out there that are talking about the current war, and watch some of the movies like The Hurt Locker and a few of those, things like that. You'll really get an understanding of what they've been through, and some of those true.
Because everybody's experience is unique. I mean, because like everybody experiences their trauma differently, and like whenever I assume I know, I'm always wrong, and the client is always happy to tell me that I'm wrong. And I think, and being able to accept that, it's not personal. But in this social work, just in general, I don't think there's really anything that's specific for military.
Probably always helps to know some lingo.
Yeah,
We have a cheat sheet,
But you won't get all the lingo, because every service has their own lingo, and so it's impossible to know the lingo. Any other questions or comments?
We talk a lot about code of ethics and dilemmas and all those other things. What are some things like that you guys have ran into with your positions?
I have some. Granted, our program rules, and this is really small, mind you, but our program rules, and don't tell my boss, please, that we have no pets in our apartments. Absolutely, positively, no pets. And some of these people have animals, they're not certified. So to make a long story short, I let them have pets, I just ignore them. Because it's really better for them. They are much easier for me to handle when they have their little puppy than it is without it, because there's a lot, as we all know, therapy animals are really, really helpful. I've had to lie. There's no pets there. But at the same time, I'll take that hit when it comes, because it's better for the client. And really, in the big picture, in my perspective, it's not a big deal. Right? It's not a real ethical thing, but it's like how sometimes program and what we do don't exactly go hand in hand. I've had to pull from the code of ethics for boundaries with a client because I make that connection. They think I'm their friend. I've had them friend me on Facebook, and I've had to go back and be like, what happened is that I have this NASW code of ethics where I can't be friends with my clients. And some of them, it's very difficult because you don't want to damage the relationship with them. So I usually make a joke, because when you register for the BDS, they give you a pamphlet of not having sex with your clients. And that's how, because it makes them laugh because they're like, that's ridiculous. But, and that's one of the main issues that I have is the boundary ones, and I pull from the code of ethics for that.
For me, probably client self-determination is, an issue with ethical concerns. So certain areas in the military, like a boxer evaluation, you don't have a choice. You have a choice whether or not to talk, but if you don't talk and we think you're suicidal, we can hold you indefinitely. So there are certain ethical concerns there that you don't really have a privilege to a hearing or other things. You can have a habeas writ, but that's through the military channels, so whether that moves or not. The other issues too are sometimes a client, we get a consult. Right now I'm working in maternal child, so I see active duty and spouses that are perinatal, so anywhere before delivery up until about a year after delivery when they're having follow-up. So sometimes you get a consult to see a patient, and you walk into the room and you have a social worker badge on, and they freak out, and sometimes they just don't even want to talk to you. So client self-determination at that point is just charting that they decline services and they're not interested. And sometimes you get a buy-in with clients that don't want mental health, and they've been asked by their commands to check in with someone, or they're going to have a command evaluation. And so instead, they get a referral to social work, and they come in and see us. And so it kind of puts them between a rock and a hard place. It's you'll get help, or we'll make you get help. And so having a client that's engaged in that way can be difficult.
Keep up with their mandated reporting laws. I was supervising a social worker, called me up and he said, hey Lisa, I got this guy, he has a black eye, his wife is pregnant, he said he got it from his wife, and he begged me not to report him. And for just a half a second, I'm like, oh, poor guy, and poor woman, she's probably all hormonal, you know, and I was thinking that, right? And then I said, this was a male social worker, and I said, you know what? If this was the other way around, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. So, no, you have to report it. And turns out, I'm not kidding when I say 2 days later, he came into the ER, brutally beaten up in his private parts. She had abused the heck out of him with a weapon and who knows, hands and whatever else. And his body parts were swollen. I mean, everything on his lower body parts were swollen. So had he not reported that 2 days before, which kind of led the spouse, the husband, he started thinking more about protecting himself. And he heard a male say, that is not okay, it is not acceptable, she should not hit you like that, I'm going to be calling the police, they're going to be contacting you. And 2 days later, he came to the ER with severe wounds to his lower part. And you just can't let the patient or the spouse or anybody make you question whether you should follow your mandated reporting laws. Just always follow them. Even when you feel bad, you might even ruin the relationship, but you have to do it. It's not a choice, and that's what you tell them. And if you can maintain a relationship, great. But if you can't, that's okay. You've done your job to get somebody out there to check on that family. So that's a dilemma that will come up all the time. Maybe already has in your internships where they beg you, if I tell you this, don't get my husband arrested, don't get him in trouble. You don't have a choice. You have to do it. So that'll keep coming up for mandated reporting issues.
For me, it's probably, I don't know, it's not completely unique, but it's, knowing when your scope of practice is being, starting to get up to that point, because oftentimes as a private practice, you kind of get put in this role, you're kind of on an island, so to speak, and people sometimes put you in a situation where they're like, okay, I'm not sure if this is within my scope. And the fortunate thing for me is I have a trusted colleague that I know that works right next door to me, and we've known each other for 13 years, so I know I can go to that individual and seek guidance. So that idea of self-care and scope of, you can manage those issues when, even as a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been licensed since 2004, is that you always look to seek out a colleague or somebody, a mentor or somebody to get you some good advice about, are you proceeding in the best direction? I don't think that changes from internship all the way through 20, 30 years of practice. It's good practice to do that, to seek supervision, to see if I'm in my scope or not. Is this a clinical issue maybe I've never faced before? To always be ready to do that, to be able to humble yourself occasionally. I think it's very important. So.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because we were, during the military social work immersion, it was brought up it was the military cultural class thing about ethical dilemmas and being able to, the command tells you that you're supposed to report, or you don't know because you can mess up their career, and being someone who used to be in, I understand the fact that I don't want my career to get messed up, so I don't have to say, so all those kinds of things of, how that works and what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I agree that is a challenge at times, but again, it always comes back. I kind of look at I always say to myself, could I get in trouble if I don't do this thing? Could I get in trouble? Could my license be on the line if something happened tomorrow? And when I say yes, I could get in trouble, then I don't have a choice. I look at it like I have to pursue this for this member. A domestic violence situation could easily turn the next day and be worse. So, Child Protective Services, it's not there, as somebody probably work in that. When we tell people we're going to call CPS for them or on them, we tell them it's not necessarily to harm you, it's to offer services and support and try to get your family back being fully functional again. Because what you're doing is wrong and abusive, and it's not acceptable in the California law to hit your kid like that. So we're going to send out this resource to hopefully help you get on track and get your family back together, healthy. So we try to find ways to follow those ethical dilemmas in those military dilemmas of trying not to get people in trouble, but you still have to protect society too, and their command and everybody else in their chain of command.
Yeah, sometimes you have to know that as a role that you have to kind of do sometimes two duties. One is to help people, but then the other one is an element of social control. And you've got to know which hat to put on. And there's going to be times where you say, I'm sorry, I want to help you, but I got to be an agent of social control, and I have to report this, like the light of day test. Would I get in trouble? What would other people think if I kept this in confidence? Those are going to be dilemmas you're going to face no matter if you're a military social worker or any social work profession. It may come up in different ways, but mean, I've had teenagers tell me, well, I'm thinking about suicide, but don't tell my parents. I mean, that's a dilemma,
Yeah.
so no different than, hey, I'm feeling this way, but don't tell my community officer. You've got to be able to sit with that.
You can't be prepared for everything, but if you know somebody's coming into clinic and they've got issues, they're depressed, they're anxious, you know, they're not adjusting to all the circumstances, it's always important to have a good confidentiality limits discussion about these are my services, this is what's going to happen if I hear this, right? And talking with them about, you know, in the office and out of the office is, you know, two different worlds, and what we discuss in here is safe. But if I hear about you hurting someone else hurting you, you know, all the things that you're trained to bring up every time you discuss with someone. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to walk into a client, you know, like in the maternity ward, if I'm seeing them for depression and they're already seeing a psychologist, they probably know limits of confidentiality. But if I'm seeing someone for the first time and they're a little frazzed and they're a little concerned, and then I come in with my uniform and they're a little freaked out because they think that, you know, now I've got to run the blue line as well as the therapist line, you know, it's always good to get it out of the way and just have full disclosure with the client right off the bat so that they drop that guard and are more open with you. And sometimes, you know, if it comes up, it might damage the relationship, and sometimes it might build it because you're that one advocate that's on their side, and you're the one that's offering the services when they haven't been heard and they haven't been listened to and they don't know where to go.
Well, thank you. If there's no more questions, I guess we can cut it now, and if anybody has any questions to say on the side or